Some mornings, I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself. I see my eyes, the scar, the way I flinch before I breathe, and I wonder, how much more can I continue this marriage?
Mama, are you crying? Did someone make you sad?
No, sweet girl. Nobody made me sad. Sometimes, mamas just feel full of things they can't always say out loud. Come here, baby. Give mama a hug.
Rose, this food is cold again.
I thought I'd keep it warm.
So you think lukewarm trash is better? Useless woman.
I am Rose Brown. I matter, even if no one hears me. Even if it feels like I'm fading, I still matter. And one day, I'll prove it.
What will Rose do next? Stay with us to find out. And let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This story matters. She deleted the recording. Rose stared at her phone for a moment, then placed it face down on the small counter beside the sink. Her chest rose and fell. Her hands trembled again. The bathroom was still. It had always been the quietest place in the house. The only room where the door had a lock she trusted. She turned on the tap and splashed cold water on her face. The sting helped her focus. When she looked up again, her eyes were red, but her face was calm. This, too, was something she had practiced. How to hide a storm in a still lake. She dried her face with the edge of her blouse, stepped out of the bathroom, and turned off the hallway light. The night passed. The next morning came like it always did, without asking if she was ready. Outside the bedroom door, she heard the house creak. The clock ticked. Somewhere outside, the sound of a wheelbarrow rattled down the street. Lagos was waking up, but inside this house, it still felt like night. Dora needed to eat. And school started at 8. Rose stepped out of the bathroom and moved into the kitchen. She walked quietly, almost by habit. The floor tiles were cold beneath her feet. The broken plate from the night before was gone. She'd cleaned it already, after the shouting stopped, after Dora cried herself to sleep. She made toast, 2 slices, one for Dora, one for herself. She poured warm water into a blue plastic cup, added some powdered milk, and stirred. She placed the toast and drink on a tray and carried it gently to the small table near the window. Then she walked into Dora's room. Her daughter was curled up like a comma beneath the faded pink bedsheet, her stuffed rabbit still tucked under one arm. Her face looked peaceful, but her tiny eyebrows were drawn, like they had been dreaming of something too heavy for a child to carry. Rose sat beside her and stroked her hair. "Dora," she whispered, "wake up, baby." Dora stirred, blinked, and sat up slowly. "Morning, Mama." "Morning, sweetheart." The little girl rubbed her eyes. "You're okay today?" Rose smiled. It was soft and small, but it held. "Yes, baby. I'm okay. Go eat before your food gets cold." Dora got up and walked to the table. She didn't say much, but she kept looking at her mother as she ate. When she was done, Rose helped her dress. A yellow top with a butterfly, navy blue jeans, her pink sandals. She combed Dora's hair again, re-beading one of the puffs that had come undone overnight. At the gate, Rose knelt to hug her. "Listen," she said softly, "if anyone ever tries to hurt you or talk to you in a way that makes you feel small, you tell me. Promise?" Dora nodded. "I promise." "Good. Go on and listen to your teacher." Dora waved and joined the other children walking down the street. Rose stood there for a moment, then shut the gate. She locked it and leaned against the metal, closing her eyes. Inside again, she picked up a rag, a small bowl of soapy water, and crouched to clean the kitchen tiles. There were faint stains left. Blood, she was sure. Maybe from her lip. Maybe from where Henry had thrown the plate and something had cut her foot. It didn't matter. She scrubbed until the stain faded. Her hands ached, but she didn't stop. By the time she finished, her back hurt. She sat on the floor, leaned her head against the cabinet, and closed her eyes. For a second, she imagined a different life. One where she was still coding, still building something, with her hands that didn't leave marks on her skin. She stood up, walked into the bedroom, and opened the wardrobe. In the corner, beneath some folded bedsheets, was a tin. It looked like it once held biscuits. The label was worn. On it, in black marker, she had written, "Dora's school fees." She opened the lid. Inside were some folded Naira notes, crisp, a little warm from being hidden too long. She counted them slowly. It wasn't much, but it was growing. Every time Henry gave her money, she hid a small part. A habit now. A quiet act of survival. She heard keys outside. The gate creaked open. Her body tensed. She closed the tin, shoved it back under the sheets, and shut the wardrobe. Henry walked in without speaking. His shirt was half-buttoned. His breath carried heat and anger. He didn't look at her, just walked straight into the room, grabbed his phone, and turned around. Before he left, he paused by the door. He turned his head slightly, just enough for her to see the edge of his tattoo. "You're lucky I didn't finish what I started," he muttered. Then he slammed the door. The silence that followed was loud. Rose sat on the edge of the bed, her arms wrapped around her stomach. She didn't cry. Not this time. Her eyes were dry, but her chest felt full. Like something inside her wanted to scream. She didn't. Instead, she reached for her phone. Not to record another message. Not yet. This time, she opened a browser and typed, "Bus routes from Lagos to Lekki." Then she locked the phone and tucked it away. The morning light reached the corner of the room, and for the first time in a long time, Rose stared into it and didn't look away. The days blurred into each other. Rose moved like someone underwater, quiet, careful, holding her breath. She smiled for Dora, cooked when she needed to, and cleaned in silence. The bruises on her arm faded, but the ache didn't. And the biscuit tin in the wardrobe? It was getting heavier. One quiet afternoon, while Dora was at school, Rose stood by the window and stared out at the street. People passed by, some in suits, some carrying bags, some shouting into their phones. And for the first time in a while, she let herself remember who she used to be, back when her name didn't sound small. 4 years ago, she was 28, and her whole life was ahead of her. She had just finished giving a presentation at a tech conference in Lagos. Her voice clear, her slides perfect, her inbox already full of interview requests. She remembered the applause, the handshake from the foreign investor, and the moment she stepped off the stage, heart racing with pride. That's when she met Henry. He was tall, smooth, confident. He wore a navy blue suit and a watch that looked expensive. He smiled like someone who already knew you'd say yes. "Genius," he'd said, watching her from across the room. "That's what you are." She laughed back then. She wasn't used to being called that. They had coffee 2 days later, dinner that weekend. By the next month, they were inseparable. "You're special," he said once. "Let me take care of you. You shouldn't have to hustle like this forever." At first, it sounded like love. Then, after she got pregnant, he said it again. But this time, it sounded like a rule. "You don't need to work anymore," he told her. "I'll handle things. Just stay home. Focus on the baby." She agreed, hesitant but hopeful. Dora was born, and Rose stayed home. For a while, it felt like peace. But something shifted. The way Henry looked at her started to change. He didn't ask how she felt anymore. He didn't smile when she spoke. He'd come home late, then complain about the house, the food, her hair, her silence. One evening, when Dora was barely 6 months old, Rose sat in the living room feeding her. Henry came in. She gently mentioned that they were low on groceries, that the landlord had asked about rent again. He didn't speak, not until she stood up. Then, out of nowhere, his hand struck her face. She didn't cry, not then. She just stood there, frozen, shocked. Her cheek burned. Dora had started to fuss in her arms, and all Rose could do was whisper, "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Hours later, he came back with roses. Real ones, wrapped in plastic. He knelt beside her, touched her hand, and said, "I'm sorry. I lost control. I'll never do that again." She believed him. Or at least, she wanted to. The next day, she began hiding money. It was small at first. A few naira from the weekly food budget. Tucked away into a tin she labeled Dora's school fees. Not just for education, but for hope. Back in the present, Rose blinked away the memory and stepped back from the window. She could hear Dora's soft laughter from outside, playing with the neighbors' kids. That sound kept her steady. She changed her clothes, wiped her eyes, and headed out to visit someone she hadn't seen in a while. Rita Matthews, her old university friend. Rita lived in a fancier part of town now. A small flat, air-conditioned, modern. She opened the door in a crop top and high-waisted jeans, her long braids falling over one shoulder. "Wow," Rita said, hugging Rose lightly. "You look tired, girl. Sit. Sit." They talked a bit about school, old times, Lagos traffic. Then Rose hesitated, fingers gripping the edge of her chair. "Rita," she began. "I need to tell you something." Rita raised a brow. Serious face? "What's up?" And Rose told her, not everything, just enough. The hitting, the anger, the loneliness, the fear. When she finished, Rita blinked, then reached for her phone. "Men are rough, babe," she said, scrolling. "It's life. Just pray harder. You'll be fine." Rose didn't say anything. She just nodded slowly and stood to leave. On the way home, her eyes burned. Not from sadness, but from clarity. There were people she could no longer run to. That night, as she washed dishes in the kitchen, she noticed a crack forming in one of the tiles near the sink. Thin, jagged. It hadn't been there before. Funny, she thought. That's what it feels like something inside her had started to split. Henry came home late again. He walked past her without speaking. The TV volume was loud. When she asked if he'd eaten, he waved her off. Later, when she reminded him again, just once, gently, about the bills, he stood up and walked straight toward her. His hand came down fast, a slap, sharp and loud. She stumbled, her head hitting the fridge door. She tasted blood, but she didn't fall. He left her there, holding her cheek in silence. She could hear Dora's soft crying from the room, muffled behind the door. She didn't cry this time, either. She walked into the bedroom, sat on the bed, and opened the tin. She counted every naira. And for the first time since she'd hidden the first note, she allowed herself to think one word: leave. Rose didn't sleep that night. She sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the biscuit tin on the floor. The money wasn't much, but it was all she had. Every folded bill, every coin, every quiet sacrifice was in there. And now, the thought that had hovered in the back of her mind for months was loud: leave. She placed the tin back under the bed, gently, as if it might shatter. Her chest was tight, but her hands were steady. The next morning, she packed Dora's lunch and walked her to the gate. Dora smiled up at her, her pink backpack bouncing as she walked. "You're coming to pick me today, right?" "Yes, baby," Rose said, kneeling. Right on time. She kissed her forehead and watched her daughter disappear down the street. Then she turned back to the house. It was quiet for a while, until it wasn't. Henry came into the kitchen around noon, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He looked at the pot on the stove. "Rice?" he asked. "Yes, I thought I'd warm some for you." She reached for the kettle to make tea. 5 minutes passed. The silence stretched. Then came the sound of the kettle clicking off. The tea was ready. She poured it into his favorite mug and placed it on the table, next to the plate of food. He picked up a spoon, took one bite, and stopped. "This is overcooked," he said flatly. "I'm sorry," she replied, not looking at him. "I added water so it wouldn't burn." He stared at her, his jaw tight. Then, without a word, he stood, picked up the mug, and tipped the boiling tea onto her arm. She gasped, jerking backward, grabbing her arm. The pain was instant, sharp, white hot. She could feel the skin rising beneath the sleeve of her blouse. "What are you doing?" she cried. Before she could step back, he grabbed her wrist. "I work all day, and you serve me this?" he snapped. Rose yanked herself away, stumbling against the counter. "Mama!" They both froze. Dora was standing in the doorway. She had come home early. Her teacher had sent her home because of a school closure. She held her rabbit, her eyes wide and wet. "Mama, stop it! Don't hurt her!" Henry turned to the child. "Go to your room!" "Mama!" Dora screamed again, running toward her mother. In that moment, something in Henry cracked. He raised his hand, fast, and slapped Dora across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Rose's heart stopped. For a moment, the world tilted. Then her body moved on its own. She stepped in front of her daughter and shoved Henry back with both hands. He stumbled slightly, caught off guard. She reached up and scratched him, deep and hard, across the lion tattoo on his arm. He grabbed his arm and stared at her. Blood rose in thin lines beneath her nails. For a second, they stood there, silent, breathing hard. Then he laughed. "See?" he whispered. "You're just like me now, an animal." She didn't respond. She turned to Dora, lifted her into her arms, and carried her to the room. The child was shaking. Her cheek was red. Her rabbit dangled from her fingers. Rose rocked her gently, whispering, "I've got you. I've got you." That night, when Henry had gone out and the house was still, Rose began to pack. She moved quietly. Her fingers were quick, her breath even. She folded 2 sets of clothes for Dora and 1 for herself. She took the biscuit tin, her ID card, and Dora's birth certificate. She wrapped the rabbit in Dora's pink jacket and slipped it into the small bag. Then she sat on the floor and picked up her pen. She opened Henry's Bible, the one that always sat untouched at the edge of the shelf, and tucked a letter between the pages. The paper was folded in half, the handwriting steady. "God sees you," it read. "I don't." She zipped the bag closed and waited. At midnight, she woke Dora gently. "We're going to Grandma's," she whispered. "Now?" Dora asked, still sleepy. Rose nodded. "Yes. Pack quiet, baby. It's a surprise." They walked to the bus stop in silence. The streets were empty. A dog barked in the distance, and the moon followed them like a witness. They boarded a rusted midnight bus headed to Lekki. Dora sat by the window, the rabbit in her lap, her small hand in her mother's. "Is Grandma's house a magic place?" she asked softly. Rose looked down at her, and for the first time in a long time, her voice didn't shake. "Yes," she said. "That's where Mama's smile lives." They didn't look back. The house was too quiet. Henry Brown stepped into the living room, expecting to hear Dora's cartoons playing or the sound of a pot boiling on the stove. But there was nothing. No slippers tapping across the floor, no quiet voice saying, "Welcome." Just silence. He dropped his keys on the table. The lock on the gate was still hanging, but it looked different, unlatched, weak. "Rose?" he called. No answer. He checked the bedroom. The wardrobe was half open, a few shirts missing. Dora's school shoes weren't by the door. Her pink rabbit was gone too. He stormed into the living room and spotted the Bible on the shelf. It looked like someone had touched it. He hadn't opened it in months. He flipped through the pages, and something slipped out. A folded paper. He unfolded it, expecting a letter, maybe a plea. Instead, it said, "God sees you. I don't." He crumpled the note and let out a guttural shout. Then he kicked the table, knocking over a chair. The picture frame on the wall fell and shattered. The vase in the corner hit the tiles and cracked in half. He turned over the couch cushions, searched the kitchen drawers. He flung open the wardrobe and tore through the sheets. They were gone. They were actually gone. That night, Henry didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, shirtless, a bottle of gin beside him. The lion tattoo on his arm looked more like a wound than a symbol now. His phone rang. He ignored it. Then it rang again. It was Timothy Braves, his colleague. He picked up. "What?" "You missed the board meeting," Timothy said flatly. Henry rubbed his temple. "I had a family emergency. You've had 3 this month." "It's handled." There was a pause. "You should take a step back for a while," Timothy said. "The team's uncomfortable." Henry's voice dropped. "Is that supposed to mean something?" "It means," Timothy replied, calm but clear, "you're spiraling. Handle it. Or you won't have a team to come back to." Henry threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and cracked. The screen went black. The next day, he stormed into the office without warning. His shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes were bloodshot. Timothy was at the front desk, talking to a junior staff member. "You've been talking behind my back?" Henry snapped. Timothy turned, unfazed. "You should go home." Henry shoved him. The room froze. Security stepped in. They didn't argue. They just asked Henry to leave. And this time, it wasn't a suggestion. Outside, the sun was too bright, the streets too loud. He got into his car, slammed the door, and sat there, breathing like a bull. Everything felt like static, like noise. He didn't know what to do with his hands, with his mind. When he got home, he decided to cook. He hadn't touched the kitchen in years. He left the gas running and went to the bedroom to find his charger. He never made it back in time. The curtains caught first, then the rug, the edge of his Agbada collection. By the time he smelled smoke, it was already climbing the wall. He rushed to open the window, burned his hand on the curtain rod, tried to toss water from a bucket, but it was too late. He watched, helpless, as his favorite jacket curled into ash. Outside, Faith James, the orange seller who had a stall just beside his gate, saw the smoke. She called the fire service. She stood still for a moment, arms folded, lips tight. "I should have said something," she murmured. "Years ago. I saw what he did to that woman. I knew," but she didn't move. The fire was put out before it consumed the entire house, but not before it left its mark. 2 days later, Henry sat on the front step, bandages on his arm, staring at the blackened wall like it had betrayed him. His phone was dead, his inbox silent, his house empty. That night, he drove. He didn't know where. He just needed to leave. The streets of Lekki blurred past him, neon lights flashing across his windshield. His grip on the wheel was tight. His jaw clenched. He thought about Rose, about her voice. "I matter." He hated those words. Somewhere between roundabouts, a truck cut him off. He swerved. The Mercedes spun once, then again. The last thing he saw was his own reflection in the rearview mirror. Twisted, unfamiliar. The car flipped. Metal tore through the night. When he woke up, he was in a hospital bed. His legs didn't move. The nurse didn't smile. "You're lucky to be alive," she said flatly, adjusting the drip. He didn't feel lucky. Over the next week, the truth unfolded piece by piece. He was paralyzed from the waist down. The surgery bill was enormous. His office had already replaced him. The messages stopped coming. The visitors never arrived. One afternoon, Mary Richard, the former housemaid, stepped into the room. She looked different, confident. Her apron had been replaced with a clean blouse, and she carried a small bag of fruit. Henry looked at her, eyes wide. "Please," he said. "Can you help me out of this?" Mary smiled softly. "You never said please before." Then she turned and left. He was alone again. This time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The walls whispered now. Henry lay in bed, unmoving from the waist down. The machines beeped softly beside him. The bandages on his chest had been removed, but the bruises underneath stayed dark. The nurse came in only when necessary. No small talk, no gentle tone, just pills, charts, and silence. His phone, once a constant buzz of deals and praise, hadn't vibrated in weeks. He had messaged old friends, ex-clients, even the pastor from the neighborhood church. No one responded. The world had moved on and left him behind. One morning, a volunteer came to read to patients on the ward. When she saw Henry, she hesitated. He recognized her, one of his former neighbors. He remembered mocking her once for selling ground nuts on the street. She gave him a polite smile, turned around, and read to someone else. He stopped asking for help after that. Days passed slowly. His body shrank. His voice lost its sharpness. Even the lion tattoo on his arm, once proud and bold, now seemed to sag. Just like the rest of him. One afternoon, the door creaked open again. It was Mary Richard. She stepped in slowly, dressed in a clean blouse and skirt, her chin lifted with quiet confidence. She looked different, stronger. She set a small bag of fruit on the table. Henry's voice cracked. "Mary?" She didn't answer immediately. "I need help," he said. "Please, I've got no one left." Mary looked at him. Her eyes didn't hold hate, just something sharper, clarity. "You never said please before," she said. He opened his mouth to reply, but nothing came. She left the bag, then she walked out. Henry didn't call her back. That evening, a nurse changed his sheets. She moved fast, tugged the corners of the mattress like it was just another shift. As she walked out, Henry caught the sound of her laughing with another nurse in the hallway. He wasn't part of the joke. He was the punchline. Miles away in Lekki, Rose Brown stood in front of her mother's mirror. She wore a soft blue dress. Nothing flashy, but new. It was a gift from Judith, her mother. The sleeves hugged her arms gently, the waist fitted just right. She had brushed her curls into a low bun. No makeup, no earrings, just her, and the soft smile slowly finding its way back to her lips. Judith stepped into the room, holding a small tin of coconut oil. "Come," she said. "Let me finish your edges." Rose sat. She didn't speak, just tilted her head gently as her mother worked. "You're coming back," Judith whispered. "Little by little." Rose nodded. "I feel it." Outside, Dora's laughter echoed through the yard. She was chasing butterflies in the sunlight, her pink shoes kicking up dust, her stuffed rabbit swinging from one hand like it was part of the game. She ran across the grass, hair bouncing in beads, calling out to the wind. "Mama, look, I caught one!" Rose stepped out and smiled. The breeze touched her face. She walked barefoot to the edge of the yard, knelt down beside her daughter, and watched the tiny wings flicker in Dora's hands. "You're so gentle," Rose said. Dora looked up. "Like you, Mama." For a second, Rose froze. Then she pulled Dora into her arms. They stayed like that. Mother and daughter, cheek to cheek, wrapped in warmth the world didn't give them, but couldn't take away either. That night, after dinner, Judith gave Rose a small envelope. Inside was a flyer for a local tech startup. "We're looking for community tutors," it read. "Basic coding, beginners, welcome." Rose's eyes welled up. "I haven't touched code in years," she whispered. Judith smiled. "That part of you didn't die. It just waited." She tucked the flyer into her notebook and held it close. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Henry stared at the ceiling. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just stared. The walls didn't whisper anymore. They listened. 2 months later, Rose stood by a puddle outside Dora's new school. The rain had just stopped. The sky was clear again, and children were running past in bright uniforms. Dora hugged her and ran inside, shouting goodbye. Rose turned to leave, but caught her reflection in the puddle. She stopped. For the first time in years, the woman looking back smiled. And that, my beautiful family, is the end of today's story. If this touched your heart even a little, please don't forget to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone special, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You're not just viewers. You're part of my journey, my story, my purpose. I see you. I value you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me till the end. Until the next one, remember this: you are worthy, you are loved, and your story matters. Stay blessed, stay beautiful, and I'll see you in the next video. With love, always.